All right.
Wow.
What did we watch?
Wow. We watched Event Horizon featuring Lawrence Fishburne. Fishburne.
And
And
who's
Sam something.
yeah? What's
He's Dr. Vier. That's how you would have said that in German. Vier.
yeah? I can't remember his last name, but yeah,
Sam Neill.
yeah. I think you're right. Yeah.
So, quick recap. I kind of like to make it as like simple as possible.
Yeah, like keep it like
keep it light, and then as we discuss, then it'll kind of come out.
Don't even explain the story. Just like
Yeah.
what is the
So
premise?
the
of this
whole
movie?
idea is like there's a ship that's lost in space. It's been lost back on Earth. It's been known. They were talking about it blew up and everyone was lost, and that was kind of their side. But then this doctor, who's kind of the main antagonist, kind of like your visual perspective for some of it.
But they're on a rescue mission.
They're on a rescue mission. Yeah, they're on a rescue mission, and there's kind of like there's like psychological elements to it. There's it's kind of like what's real, what's not real.
Well, I think that's getting a little bit too far into like the premise of the movie is there's a group of people on a rescue mission to recover a ship that they had thought was destroyed.
Well, right. But the government
and the doctor who built this a critical part of the ship says that that's not true. It was a cover up, and they're trying to find it. So, yeah, I mean, we don't necessarily have to go into. We'll get into like aspects of the movie, but just overall,
that was the whole.
What did you think of this movie?
This is a film from the 1997. Boy,
It's by Paul Anderson, who did maybe the movies I describe will kind of contextualize this. He did the Mortal Kombat movie,
okay,
and he did Alien versus Predator.
Okay,
so this is kind of a shtick. This kind of movie is a bit of a shtick for him.
I can see like definitely elements of Alien in there. Like, you're in a confined space, there's nowhere else to go, and bad things are happening. Overall, it's like, I mean, like you said, it's kind of, I don't know if it's intentionally meant to be like a shtick, but it just feels like there's so many different elements. Like, again, like we were talking about, psychological, physical, satanic, maybe hell. It's almost kind of comical how many different like angles they take on the whole like reason behind the spooky happenings, So to me, it's a fun movie to watch. It feels like a very made-for-TV movie. Like, it feels like one of these, like, it doesn't take itself too serious. It's got, it's got interesting. I mean, the practical effects are very good in some cases. Like the blood, the gore, alien type. I mean, it was fine. If I had to be really critical, I would say like it's bad.
There's actually this whole movie. There are no effects, and this was actually filmed on premises.
This is a documentary.
Yeah, this is actually a documentary, and the crew was obliterated after filming. I think they had to live stream this.
Yeah, this is
on Facebook.
Yeah.
No, I think that that's a good way to describe it. Is it's a movie that doesn't take itself too seriously. The reason why I bring up Alien versus Predator and Mortal Kombat is because these are movies that are like they embrace themselves, right? Like they embrace themselves as the genre that they are, which is like it's a popcorn flick. It's fun. It's something that you don't really. It's not there for you to really stew over,
pick apart.
Yeah, it's like it's action. It's just fun. And is this movie? See, it's funny because like you had said, if you were being critical, you'd say that this movie is bad, and it's like I can't necessarily fault you for that. Like for me, I would say if I was describing the movie and if somebody was like, is this a quality movie? I would say, no, it's not a quality movie. Sure. Now, do I like this movie? Hell yeah, I like this movie.
Yeah.
which I should clarify. I have seen this before, but it was years and years ago that I had seen it, so I hadn't seen it in a while. This is your first time seeing it, but this is a movie that I really have fun with. Like I can put this in the background, and it's like that kind of movie for me.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's got we were talking about some other like cinematic elements. Kind of reminds us of like of Cube. I think it's called The Cube. Yeah. It's called Cube. It's just like confined, gory, like thrilling. There's like no escape, and how it's portrayed is just kind of like in a space setting. There's like I said, there's like a lot of psychological elements to it, and what you see, is it real? But again, it kind of becomes like meta horror, like the ship is real, like this device that the doctor has created is connected to a different world. He denies that he doesn't know where it goes, but apparently he does know where it goes, and apparently it's a place of pure evil, and hell is what it was being described as. And it almost feels very like I said, it doesn't hit from one angle. It feels like it doesn't know. It almost feels like they're writing this down, like the writer of the movie, and they were just like, oh, this would be great if this that would be hilarious. Let's put that in there. It's linear, but it just, there's so many different aspects of it. But like Aaron said, it's, we could sit here and pick this apart, and it won't do it justice. But like, as we've talked about before, like movies can just be entertaining for what it is. And I would say as a space horror flick, it's fun. It's a fun space horror flick.
Yeah, so in case it's not obvious, Event Horizon is a ship, and the device that's on the ship allows for quick travel between distances by warping space. If you've seen any movie about space travel, they inevitably will reach for the same metaphor, that you take a piece of paper and you poke a pencil through it, and that's how you get from two sides. You cross through this sort of wormhole.
And you bend, yeah.
And so this ship, when they had seen the log footage of this crew, and at the time when they were showing this at the very beginning, it's very grainy. You can basically only hear it. They weren't sure exactly where the ship went, because the ship started on Earth, and where in the solar system or in the universe did it go? Well, they find out that it actually departs from our universe and enters into another one. And if they don't say it explicitly, they certainly imply that this ship goes into hell. And this ship has been breached by the, entities that exist within hell.
Yeah.
I think, I'll be honest, I don't find a lot of space horror movies particularly interesting. Like Alien, I like as a horror. Like I like that movie. I think it's okay. But it's not my particular flavor of horror movie. But I think I find this kind of concept of like space travel, portal reaching, chaotic dimensions being kind of interesting to me. Like a different take on this type of thing. And maybe that's not the case. Maybe there are plenty like this, but I find this a lot more interesting than ship goes into space, alien is chasing them throughout the ship, that type of thing, and they're looking to escape.
Yeah. I will say, like, I like that the horrors they experience are very personal. Like it's, like the mom saw his son, and my guess is that he was like from home movies, like he's in a wheelchair. So like I think when she would see him running, which again is caused by this, what do they call the machine? Whatever.
Yeah, the one that he had created. That's Dr.
Like
Weir created.
The center. Yeah, so like it projects this like kid, her son, but he's running, and I'm sure that was, for her, it was very, enthralling. So she had to chase him, and it ends up leading her to her demise, and then she's killed by the ship. So, but then the other parts, there's like the ship is part of, they say like the ship's alive. Like, I don't know if I understand. Again, it kind of comes from these different angles that I don't even understand, but I don't think you're supposed to understand.
Well, see, see, this is interesting because you had said something that maybe, like, for me, is not how I view it. Is I don't think that this device that Dr. Weir created causes these things. I think that he only created a device that allows for transport. And the place that the ship went invited into the ship creatures, beings, presences that manifested as guilt, as I think that it was breached by those entities, not necessarily that his device causes guilt or reflections on guilt.
That's true.
And the ship being alive, I think, is these entities have manifested onto the ship.
Gotcha.
At least that's my interpretation.
Yeah, that's probably how they. I mean, you know, again, we could nitpick each part of it, but I don't know. It's kind of one of those. What you see is what you get. You know, I don't think this. There's not like some theme that it's trying to explain. It's just like one of those movies you put on, like Aaron said, in the background, and you can kind of catch. You wouldn't have to even watch every bit of it to kind of understand the whole premises of the show. Which that's why I think, you know, when movies are like that, they're built for TV purposes. You know, you can like leave the room and come back, and you would probably still get the idea of what's going on.
Yeah, I think that. I mean, Lawrence Fishburne in this movie sticks out for the reason that 2 years from this point of this movie, he's in a movie that's pretty similar. He's in The Matrix, which is at least visually similar in terms of the ship design. So it is interesting to see him in that position. I think that if I were to describe this movie, it's like, imagine The Matrix 2, which I think emphasizes them living on the ship more than the first one. Yeah. And Hellraiser, and
that's actually a great
And like, I mean, you know, there's another good movie that, good being relative, maybe not everybody would agree with that, but there's another movie that's very similar to this that I do enjoy, is As Above, So Below. Mm-hmm. Did you ever see that?
Yeah, we saw it. Yeah, we saw it together.
Yeah, that's I mean, that's another movie that's about hell and about perception of guilt and people going through their own personal hell and a physical, like literal hell. So I feel like this movie is sort of this blend between Alien, Hellraiser, The Matrix, and I mean, As Above, So Below came out much, much later. But
yeah. I like the comparison to Hellraiser because that was the way that Dr. Weir is like, he looks very similar to like a character from Hellraiser. And I was like, he looks like somebody or something that was like eclectic or you know, recognizable from that the mid 1990s, the late 1990s, maybe early 2000s, like horror. And I like I said, I think it's almost like the writers thought, let's make this a space movie, but like, let's make a different type of space horror where it's not just aliens, you know what I mean? So it's more hell. So it's like,
it's
like,
more supernatural focused.
I
mean, it's funny because that Hellraiser comparison, I mean, they're pretty on the nose with it, I feel like. At one point, close to the end of the movie, he almost says, we have so many wonderful things to show you, so many wonderful sights for you to see or whatever.
Yeah.
Which I'm pretty sure is like a paraphrase or almost close to what they say in Hellraiser, what Pinhead says. So Pinhead. It is funny to see that sort of comparison. I guess that the vision of hell that he puts into the captain's head at the end, I'd seen that apparently there's a director's cut that is much, much longer of that is, I don't know, apparently unavailable or like
that
like they had talked about that it was something that they had shown, but they don't have the footage anymore or something. But I had heard at some point that there was some elongated version of that scene.
Yeah, I would be interested to see, because we're talking about this, like, it was almost like a montage of
It's just like boom, boom,
yeah,
boom,
like
just quick cuts of
gore and torture and maggots and things like that. Things that you would associate with hell.
my guess is that they said, like, the ratings had said, if you want any shot of this being in theaters, you're gonna have to cut that into a much, much smaller a scene.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I this is a movie that is like a fun watch. I feel like there's a lot of elevated horror movies that are like designed to be introspective and thoughtful and I don't know, to be more like a higher topic type of thing. But this is really, I mean, you'd said it earlier, it really is like kind of what you're seeing is the literal depiction of what is going on in this movie.
Yeah. It's like you could talk about
It's
psychological elements.
Very on the nose.
Yeah. When I first heard of Event Horizon, I thought about watching it on my own, because to me it felt like it had more of just more of like a space thriller, but like more about like travel, like light speed travel, like a little bit of like there's probably got some time elements, kind of like oh my gosh, I can't think of it. The biggest space movie.
Interstellar?
Yes, I haven't seen that all the way through, but it feels like it'd be more like that, more like kind of like supernatural in a way that's not hell. So to go from like what I expected to watching it just was not at all what I expected. And we talk about some of the things that the ship looks like and the ship does, and it feels so silly at times. Like Event Horizon, the actual ship, is connected by this long hallway of like what feels like thin beams, and then the whole premise at the end is like, we're going to blow this part up to separate the two ends. It's like, it almost feels like it was, it just feels like, forced. Like, of course that would happen. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It just felt like I mean, why wouldn't we do that? In the case that this wouldn't happen, which is funny because Dr. Weir made the ship. So why would he make it possible to separate like the actual like machine to the safe place in the back,
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of like when you look at the ship design,
which is funny because we're
ships.
Yeah, we're looking right now at it.
They're extremely impractical. Like it in the way where it's like, in the way where it's just like you can tell that these just do not look very resilient.
Yeah,
like you would be just the act of launching this into space would probably destroy the
machine, just the ship itself.
The interior portions of the ship.
I mean, I can't really say too much else. I mean, could we dissect, like I said, the parts that don't make sense? Well, sure, but I think that movies like this kind of get a pass from me for technical mishaps or plot devices, or because it's not really meant to be. You could pick apart every small detail in this, and I feel like it would be fine for the most part, because it's not meant to be critically analyzed, which I'm guessing is why we were looking at the reviews. Like when you rent something from Apple TV, it gives you the Rotten Tomatoes. It was like 30%. It's just
crazy low.
It feels like way too many,
way too low. For
what do you call it? Like cinephiles like care way too much about that kind of shit. I mean, it feels like taking the fun away from movies because they're technically this space machine couldn't be possible anyways. Like, shut the hell up. Like, it's supposed to be, you know what I mean? It's just, to me,
I think some of it too is just like it really, like, I think that having grown up in the era that these movies were coming out, I'm a lot more forgiving for some of the visual direction, and it just has not aged well. Like, a lot of these effects have not aged well. A lot of it, but that's kind of why I pointed out initially this is a Paul Anderson movie. He did Mortal Kombat. He did Alien versus Predator. He does a lot of movies that are not afraid to just go head first.
Yeah.
And it's part of the charm, I think, for me, is that I see this and it is not necessarily cutting edge. It's not like watching 2001 in, where you're like, wow, this looks amazing for the time period it came out. Instead, it's like, yeah, that looks like late 90s.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of how it feels watching this.
I think there, like Aaron said, there's like, it's like a pro and a con, because like it's kind of charming in a way. I'm guessing this movie probably had more practical effects than.
Well, it's a documentary, so yeah, it does.
It's real.
Yeah, this was real life, and it happened.
I mean, so of course there's probably some computer generated stuff, but like I said, it has shortcomings, but they seem mostly forgivable because it's just that kind of movie. It's just the kind of movie where you're not supposed to overly think about it. You're just supposed to, enjoy it and be spooked from the jump scares and I enjoy the fact that they kind of bring hell to space. It's hell in space.
I mean, yeah, it really is. Like I would say the most succinct way to put it is like this is a haunted house, but in a spaceship.
Yeah,
like that's kind of really what it is. It's more supernatural. It's not so much
alien.
Right. It's not so much like Alien, where you've got like this prey and predator relationship. I think that this is the kind of movie that, like we said, it's just fun. It's just there to be fun. And I think that if this were a movie that was made maybe today, I think they probably would have spent like 20 or 30 minutes trying to sell you and convince you that this set, that this era, that the things that they're doing are more convincing. Like sometimes I feel like I watch a movie and so much of the intro is just like establishing so much stuff to help make it more believable. Whereas like this starts and it's like, nope, we're in space. Nope, we're doing this. Nope, we're walking through a meat grinder.
Yeah.
Like it's just so they don't beat around the bush.
Yeah.
They just throw you into it, which I appreciate. I think that really benefits a movie like this because I'm not coming here to be convinced that this is real life. This is a movie. I don't need it to be all that convincing.
Or like you really don't need to identify with each character's backstory. Well, you kind of get that throughout as they discover their fears, especially Miller, like Captain Miller, with his backstory. But like you don't really see like the mom just looks at this like home videos, and then the first person who kind of ends up getting into a sticky situation, Justin the engineer. You don't know anything about him, but like you don't have to. Again, some of these characters, you don't need to explain every last thing to make it seem realistic.
Yeah. There is some design stuff in here that you're like, why on earth would you make it like that? Like they just showed the airlock, the way that, like a way the camera, like an aperture would open, like it kind of like opens up slowly from the middle. Like, why would they have spikes on it? Like, it's like, it's like almost like a gothic horror design ship. Like there's spikes on everything.
Yeah.
It's like completely uninviting. It's I don't know. It's very funny to see some of the stuff that you would think is like, this is a ship for people to use. Why would they?
Why would it look like an eldritch?
Yeah. Why would they put
cyberpunk?
Why would they deter people from walking through rooms?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's funny. And the other thing that we pointed out early is that this is supposed to be taking place to 2047 or something like that. They're using compact discs.
Yeah.
They're
CD.
One of the characters at the beginning, he's got photos that were developed on 4x6 photo paper
from Walgreens.
Yeah, like on the walls of his room. It is funny to see this intersection of like, it's the far future, but we're still using compact disc.
Yeah. I was going to talk more about the plot because we talk about like the design, and of course Dr. Weir was the guy who came up with this idea. And you kind of wonder if there was some, like, maybe he had some really bad intentions because, like, as the designer, why would you design it in a room with like the most like evil looking device? Like you said,
it's foreboding looking.
It looks like, I mean, we're looking at it now. It's like covered. It looks like brass knuckles. Like there's a sphere in the middle that's covered with like, just like rune copper.
I mean, it looks medieval.
It looks medieval, and he's like proud of it. But like that kind of makes me feel like, what were his intentions? Like, did he not know that this? Maybe it's designed to go to one place. I don't know, or I mean, maybe not because of the whole circumstances. But like, it feels like he knew what was beyond there, regardless.
Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
You're kind of like, did he lead this crew to their death just because he would get a rise out of it? And then he embraced himself after seeing his wife gouge her eyes out. Like he gouges his eyes out, and now he becomes this Hellraiser guy who's embracing what's beyond. It feels like too intentional to, at least from a plot perspective,
Yeah, I do think... Like, this is, to me, the thing that I really like. Maybe like is not the right word. But this is the kind of thing I really respect out of a movie like this, that is full-on embracing what it is. Because this gravity thing that we're looking at, the one that is the main device that acts as a portal, as a gateway, if this were in a movie made today, what would this... Describe to me what this room would look like.
Oh man, I mean, I might not even hit what you're going for, but
I mean, like, just you're watching a modern movie and it's got some portal, it's got some sci-fi thing in it. What do you think it would look like?
I mean, now it wouldn't look that ornate. It would just be very smooth, boring. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You'd walk in, it would be all white.
Yeah,
it would be smooth. It would be like very. I think that it being ornate is a very interesting design choice because, I mean, it really does look like it could be the shield of somebody in the medieval times.
Yeah.
It's like it looks like it's very thoughtfully put together. It doesn't look steampunky, but it looks almost like steampunky. Like it looks.
Yeah, I kind of get what you're saying. Like it looks like it's made of. It looks like it's made of like brass or copper.
Yeah. Yeah, like a bronzed sort of like device. It is a very interesting design choice.
Yeah.
And I think that I feel like it is, again, this embracing of just uniqueness and knowing what it is, as opposed to, I feel like, again, if this movie were to be made today, it would be like, well, we have to sell people. We have to really convince people that they're in a science fiction movie. This has to be all white, and it has to be a very smooth synthetic surface, and it's got to be this and that. And I think that it being the complete opposite of that seems very intentional to me.
Yeah, and I feel like I'm trying to think of any modern day space movie, and like, I think Interstellar, I mean, there are parts that do feel like that, and then even parts of Annihilation. I don't know if you've seen that.
Oh,
for sure.
Yeah, oh yeah.
But like, there's like the room where they're, I guess they're interrogating her. I think it's very much like that. It's very white. It's very just straight edged. Not a whole lot, but of course, that's not just entirely like a space movie, but. Yeah, any modern day feels like
but
like like you can tell this movie has got it's got soul to it, like
and whether of course, I think that that doesn't necessarily mean that any of us like or dislike the movie, but I think that it is, I don't know, to me, an appreciation of not doing something more safe, not doing something, and I don't know, maybe this was a little safe for the time period, because it does feel like spaceships and sci-fi in the late 90s, early 2000s was kind of like this. It was kind of, like the Matrix. Like the Matrix is, they're on the Nebuchadnezzar. It's this like kind of like the Millennium Falcon, right? Where the Millennium Falcon is like this battle tested, like it's
rugged,
rough around the edges, but it can get the job done kind of ship.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. And you know, it's funny you mentioned Annihilation, but Annihilation, I feel like at the end, it does kind of look like that room
it
where
does.
it's like
I think about the very end
geometric
now.
and really like abstract and fractal like. I don't know. I like this movie, but I think that we touched on this a little bit when we were talking about Hell House. It's like, this is a movie I like, and I fully recognize that it is not a good movie.
Yeah.
But I enjoy it.
Yeah, I'll say it's a good movie in that you can sit there and enjoy yourself, but like if you're going to be one of these guys or gals that want to analyze every detail, which we do, you know, that's kind of what we do, but like you're going to have a bad time because you could be like, well, this didn't make sense, that makes why did this, you know? Sometimes you just got to take what you get and enjoy it. But was I entertained? Yes. It even at the end, I'm just like I was thinking like I can't wait to see what happens, like what's next, you know, and all of the shortcomings that we discussed. Like it gets a pass from like, you know, you don't have to worry about, you know, it's a good story to tell. It has a story to tell and it's interesting.
Yeah, I think you go into each movie judging it from a different lens. Like when we watched Mother. Mother is a movie that is designed to be like
analyzed.
Analyzed and sort of like viewed as my interpretation was this and my interpretation, you know, like that type of thing. Whereas this is like this is like a movie you'd watch in a theater with popcorn and you'd be laughing with your friends the whole time that it's happening.
There's definitely like comic relief. Like the character Cooper is like, he's just like the kind of loudmouth guy who's just gonna like, he's just gonna swear or say the funniest stuff because
he gets blown off of his ship.
Yeah, he's like, shit.
And then he uses his oxygen and he blows himself back to the planet and to the other ship.
Yeah, so there's like definitely some comic relief and it. Yeah, I think even in theaters would be fun to just, and you don't have to think about it much else. You know, like there's some movies like Mother that we discussed, and it makes you think. It made me think for a couple of days. This movie, I'm glad that I watched it. I won't probably think about it again. You know.
Yeah. I mean, some of the other things that stand out to me when we were talking about design that I forgot to mention was like. This, don't you feel like this is kind of almost doing it in a comedic way because of how over the top it is? It's like sparks going everywhere, like strobes, and there's like fog and.
Well, I just want to know how the director and how they would have seen this, and like was there an intentional part? I think just like the mid 1990s, they were probably in like that, especially like in a space movie. They probably thought that was the coolest thing though. Like it wasn't meant to be funny, but it almost feels like it kind of does now. Like it feels like it's funny.
It kind of feels the way a little bit the way that like 80s fashion is, in that it's like unabashedly embracing a style.
Yeah.
It is like. It is really taking this. Like the ship looks great. Like it is such a convincing.
Yeah.
Like the set work is so well done. Mm-hmm. I don't know who was responsible for all the set work and like the artistic design, but this is a convincing spaceship. Now, I mean, I guess your definition of convincing might vary depending on if you imagine, like we had said, you walk into a room and it's all white and pristine and smooth and there's not a speck of dirt on any surface in the entire thing. Yeah. But I think that you can really tell that there was a lot of attention put into the set.
Like the claustrophobia, like there's like that element of like confined, you know, and then there's like another element of like grandiose horror when you go to this gateway room where it's got, again, it feels silly, but you got like but like somebody thought that was like the right design for this room, and they're not wrong. I mean, it's very ominous. You know, you walk in here, you see spikes and shit, and you see like this, you know, ball of look at that.
It's cool.
It's cool.
It is cool. Like the way that it rotates. Like we made a joke about about biblically accurate angel. Like that has to be what it's designed somewhat off of. These rotating concentric circles. It is really cool. It's fascinating. I think that while a lot of this movie doesn't hold up, I do look at that and I'm like, that still looks cool.
If you played Skyrim or any of the Elder Scrolls, it looks like dwarven. Yeah, I mean, whenever I'm playing Oblivion, there's dwarven machinery. That looks just like how it's depicted. It's golden and it's very spherical, but it's very spooky. Yeah, I like it. Yeah. So overall, I enjoyed this movie as an entertainment piece. It had some good jump scares. It had good surprise elements, some twists, some psychological elements. Again, it talks about physical hell and suffering and trauma, and with a crew that's fun to watch, and the storytelling I thought was good. Yeah, I would recommend this movie. Yeah. I don't know what I could rate it now, but I would say if you like space horror, I think you should watch this.
Yeah, and I mean, one thing we didn't talk about that everybody talks about when they talk about Event Horizon is that it's one of the few horror movies where you feel like the crew, the characters, are thinking somewhat pragmatically. They're like, we have to leave. We have to get off the ship. There are people, obviously the antagonist, Dr. Weir, is very obsessed and he wants to stay there. But everybody else, the captain is like, we're gone. We're getting out of here. We're blowing the ship up. Yeah. I think that even that aspect of this really makes this you just feel like finally I'm watching a movie where people are reacting to situations in a more appropriate way, as opposed to, they see a ghost and they're like, well, I gotta split off from the rest of my party and go see this ghost. Yeah.
Well, you see a lot of splitting up because the ship's quite big for a crew.
And they have different roles.
Yeah, they do. Exactly. There's an engineer, there's, the captain's got to command everybody. Dr. Weir's kind of doing his own. There's, someone working in the medic bay. Yeah, I agree. I think that this time you feel like you can't blame a lot of the crew members for doing something stupid because what they do makes sense.
Yeah, and they were they all have to be split up because of their roles and because of they've got people who are injured, so there have to be some people handling medical situations and
so
cool. Yeah,
what do you think? Would you recommend this movie?
I totally would. I mean, I think that it's not very long. It's not like you have to sit down and really invest 2.5 hours into a movie. And I think that if you have an appreciation for movies that can get a little silly and you want to see something that's maybe a little different, I think that this is I think it's a really unique horror movie. I think this is a lot of fun.
Yeah. It's, again, there's just so many different types of horror, but it feels like a classic. Not even it's not a slasher, but it's a classic.
It's like a space sci-fi haunted house.
Sci-fi horror. Yeah, I agree. Watch it.
Watch it, buddy.
Watch yourself.